Hi guys, Tiffany from Life of Lee's here, and today we're going to take a few minutes, hopefully just a few minutes, to talk about read aloud. First, I'm going to go through and just show you a few of the very recent read alouds we have done and have really enjoyed and have worked for us. Keep in mind that I have 4 daughters, and currently my read aloud time is to my 8-year-old and 4-year-old daughter. My 15 and 14-year-old daughters really aren't interested in being read aloud to anymore, and I'm okay with that. Some of the read alouds that we've done in the past, I really can't remember what all they were, because when we moved here from Alaska, we gave away most of our curriculum that we had used over the years being there. So I don't really have those books with me, and I find it very hard to remember what all we did during those times. It's crazy how that works when you just kind of forget things, right? So anyways, we're just going to talk about some of the books I have read aloud recently to my children and why. And if you hear that noise, that is dogs and kittens running around on the wood tile floors here, because I am in the main part of my house right now. But anyways, so forgive the noise that you might hear. Or even a child splashing who's taking a bath. She really wanted to try out her new bath bombs. One of the first series that I highly recommend, and I feel like this would be great whether you have a boy or a girl, that this would have things that would interest both of them, is the Little House on the Prairie series. So I have the set here of the Little House on the Prairie series. And Little House on the Prairie, in no particular order, has Little House in the Big Woods, Little Town on the Prairie, The Long Winter, By the Shores of Silver Lake, By the Shores of Silver Lake, On the Banks of Plum Creek, Farmer Boy, Little House on the Prairie, These Happy and Golden Years, and The First 4 Years. We also have the Little House on the Prairie cookbook, and there's a couple of smaller books that I believe, we actually haven't read them yet, are letters that Laura had written to her family at different points in her life. So there's those as well. Now, what I like about the Little House on the Prairie is that it's entertaining, but it's also informative, because you're learning about a time in history that was pretty important to the history of us Americans, I feel. And so while entertaining, it is informative, and while not every single bit of information is true or actually what happened necessarily, it still has a good historical base, and a lot of it is actual experiences. There is, in Little House on the Prairie, there is some ways that they use to speak about people or ethnicities and things like that that might be like offensive to some of you. I would think it would be offensive to a lot of you, but keep in mind that it was part of that time period. Things were different then, and that just opens the door to great discussions with your children to explain to them why people maybe spoke that way and how it is not okay and that kind of thing. So don't be afraid to read books to your children that have maybe topics that are sensitive, because that is just a great opportunity to speak to your children about those things. Going along with the Little House on the Prairie series, we are currently working on the Rose years. So this was the story of Laura's daughter Rose, and I believe the last book is actually from Rose's father's point of view, Almanzo. So far we are really enjoying it. I think we're currently on Little Town in the Ozarks, and I'm not sure which ones we have left. On the other side of the hill, that's a duplicate, In the Land of the Big Red Apple, Little House on Rocky Ridge, Little Farm in the Ozarks, I might have already said that one because I know I had some duplicates, and New Dawn on Rocky Ridge. So we're on Little Town in the Ozarks, and then we have whichever books are left after that. And again, I actually like Rose years even better than Little House on the Prairie series. I feel like they're even written even better. They're even more entertaining and draw you in. The language is just really fun and really gets your imagination going. You can really picture it. And again, it can have some sensitivity with some of the topics, but again, that just opens the door for you to have those discussions with your children. And whether they're 4 or 8 or 15, what have you. I just don't think there's ever really a wrong time to have discussions about some of those topics. You just change the language in which you use and choose to have those discussions. I have 2 more individual books here that we recently read, and both of them can kind of be heavy books, I guess. The story in them can be sad or sensitive, but they were really good books. They were really engaging, they were very well written, and they really opened the door, again, to some great conversations with my children, and they really enjoyed them, even though they were both heartbreaking in their own right. So the first one was Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson Rawls. And you can see it's we bought this used, and then we read through it, so it's kind of tore up, but doesn't matter. And so I'll just read the back jacket to you. A loving threesome. They ranged the dark hills and river bottoms of Cherokee country. Old Dan and the brawn, little Ann and the brains, and Billy and the will to train them to be the finest hunting team in the valley. Glory and victory were coming to them, but sadness waited too, and close by was a strange and wonderful power that's only found where the red fern grows. So it is about a boy and his hunting dogs, but it's about how he came to get those hunting dogs and all that he went through to get them, and then to care for them and train them, and the things that they experienced together. It's really good. The other one that we recently read is Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry by Mildred D. Taylor. Again, we bought this used and we've well loved it as well. So with the land to hold them together, nothing can tear the Logans apart. Why is the land so important to Cassie's family? It takes the event of one turbulent year, the year of the night riders and the burnings, the year a white girl humiliates Cassie in public simply because she is black, to show Cassie that having a place of their own is the Logan family's lifeblood. It is the land that gives the Logans their courage and pride. No matter how others may degrade them, the Logans possess something no one can take away. So as you probably gathered from the back jacket of this is certainly a heavy topic, but I think it is well worth the read, and it is important that children know the history, and so maybe they can have empathy for others and what life was like and is like for many in ways still. So it was a really great read. It was beautifully written, heartbreaking, but in the end it's also a great ending. So I highly recommend this book as well. I'm just going to talk about the Who Was, Where Was, and What Was book series, which we have read several, and we still have many more that we're reading, and we'll probably buy more as well. There are so many of them out there, and so far every single one we've read we have really enjoyed. Again, they're very, very well written, they're very easy reads, they're informative. I'm not going to say that every bit of information is correct in them, but for the most part I found that they seem to be pretty well written. They seem to have pretty good information in them, but again, it just opens the door for those discussions about the historical events, discussions about these famous people in history or even current times. And if you find something is misinformative, then you can then do that research together and talk about it, and lead your child down the correct path, that kind of thing. And as well as it's just a way to inspire your children by the events that have taken place and by the people that have had these experiences and the things they've done in life. Can be very inspiring, and you can kind of guide your children through these simple readers and to exploring more of these things that they look for and admire and want to discover and do themselves. So let's see if they're okay. Penguin Random House. So I cannot talk. So Penguin Young Readers Group, an imprint of Penguin Random House LLC. It says Grosset and Dunlap. So I just grabbed a few off of our shelves. So like we have What Were the Salem Witch Trials, and I think all these in my lap we've read. Who is Jane Goodall? Who Was Alexander Graham Bell? Where is the Grand Canyon? And so like the where is kind of ones, like they don't just explain to you where something is, like they give you facts about it and history about it and current events about it and all that kind of stuff. And they also, all of them have quite a bit of, you know, like pictures. This one has came with a little map actually. Little map and some pictures, but they all have black and white drawings in them throughout the book. So we love that, of course. Where is our solar system? What was the Great Depression? What was Ellis Island? Who was Queen Elizabeth? Who was Albert Einstein? Who was Anne Frank? Who was Milton Hershey? Who was Neil Armstrong? And this one got something spilt on it. It's all pink. Who was Theodore Roosevelt? So these are all ones we have already read, and like I said, we have many more. And my 8-year-old particularly has loved almost all these books and has been very inspired. By example, Theodore Roosevelt was very inspirational to her. But she found them all inspiring, but that one particularly was one of her most inspiring. That one and Jane Goodall. But anyways, so those are some of the readers that we have read aloud, and a bit of why we loved them and why I would think you might love them too. A little bit more about doing read alouds. When I say doing a read aloud, I don't mean that you have to sit down and spend hours reading to your child. I don't mean that you have to read to them at bedtime every night. You read to them when it is suitable for you and your child. So maybe it's 10 minutes. Maybe it's an hour of reading. Maybe it's every day of the week. Maybe it's only certain days of the week. Maybe it's in the morning, at night. Maybe it's just sporadic when you can. That is fine. But I just really encourage you to take that time to read and to set some kind of goal for yourself to get in the flow of reading aloud. Because I know when I first started doing read alouds, I didn't love it. I felt like, you know, my mouth was getting dry and my throat was hurting, and it just felt like a lot of work to me. But then I grew to love it, to where I love to read to my children, and sometimes it's hard to stop reading to them. So set some kind of a goal, whether that goal be that you are going to read 10 minutes to them each day, or you're going to read a chapter each day. Whatever works for you, set some kind of goal to help you get started. And once you are regularly meeting that goal, I think you'll find that you'll go beyond that when you can, because you will enjoy it as much as your child will. And that's the other thing, is your child at first might not enjoy it either. They might be a little wiggly or not really be paying attention or something, but they will grow to love it too, as you do, because the more you love it, the more you kind of become a better read alouder to them. And again, like I said, that can be any time of day or night. So whether that's in your homeschooling and it's going to be part of your homeschool routine, like in your homeschool hours, that's fine. Or if you just want to set that time aside for bedtime, so you're just going to read to them at night, if that's what works for you. Leave the door open for discussions and questions when you're reading to your child. Now you want to teach them, of course, probably to like not interrupt necessarily when you're reading, but make sure that any questions they might have, that you're able to answer them. So keep that in mind. So if you're gonna say, I only have 10 minutes, I have 10 minutes each day to read to them, and that is it. Maybe you read for 8 minutes and leave 2 minutes for any questions that they might have. That's part of it. It's not just listening to the story and imagining it, but expanding their mind with it. And so I'm sure they're gonna have some kind of questions, whether it's, what does this mean? Or maybe they just want to have a quick discussion with you because it excited them so much what you just read about. So, you know, leave the door open for questions and discussions with your children. Expect that and be willing to give some time into that. Again, read as much or as little at a time as desired. So like I said, I recommend setting some kind of goal, at least in the beginning, to kind of get you started on that read aloud path. But you don't have to read forever and ever. I mean, if you just really can't stand to read more than 1 or 2 pages at a time, that's fine. Read 1 or 2 pages, have a brief discussion with your child should they have any questions or want to speak about it, and move on with your day. When should you read aloud to your children? Like what ages? Okay. Again, this is up to you and your child and whatever works for you, but my recommendation is start reading to them very young, like babies. As soon as you have the energy and the time, start reading to that child. and read to them as long as you can. You know, some kids might like to be read to until they're 18 or something. Other kids might not. It just depends on your child and you, and it's fine to read to a child that's 17, and it's okay to no longer read aloud to a child that's 12. I mean, it's okay. You just do the best you can and put as much time into it as you can, really. I think it'll be a blessing for you and for them. Why read aloud, right? You might think, that's just another thing for me to do. I just don't have the time. I don't enjoy, maybe you don't enjoy reading. So why do I think that reading aloud to your child is important? And here is my reasons why. It teaches your child. Whether you're reading fiction or nonfiction, they are learning. Trust me, they are learning something when you're reading aloud to them. Even if they're playing with Legos or coloring a picture and they don't seem to be paying attention, they are learning. They are learning from you. Reading aloud to your child encourages a desire to read in them. So you might not like reading, but if you can suck it up for 10 minutes a couple times a week and get into it and just really passionately read to your child for 10 minutes, you are going to encourage a desire in them for them to read themselves. And that's great, because I think we all want our children to read, even if we ourselves don't like reading. The other thing is that it naturally teaches your child how to read. And you might think, well, that doesn't make any sense, because they're probably not like looking at the words and following along with the words. But it's more of, it teaches them the rhythm of reading, you know, that natural kind of flow of like pausing at end of periods, and exclamations is excitement, and a question mark has that questioning tone in your voice. So they're learning like rhythm, and they're also learning word familiarity. So if they're hearing these words and they're understanding the terms and what these words mean, that's greatly going to create their own natural reading ability. It really is. So again, it naturally teaches the child how to read. Reading to your child, of course, encourages imagination. So if you enjoy reading even a little bit, or have ever enjoyed reading any single book, you will probably know that when you were doing that, you had all kinds of thoughts going through your head when you're reading, whether it was that you're imagining the story being told, or maybe after you put the book down, you were thinking all these things about what you could do based on what you read or something. So it encourages imagination, which is a very important thing to children, but also to adults. Like, the better your imagination, more power to you. One of the last things that I feel reading aloud does, and why you should read aloud to your child, is because it's bonding time. It really is. It is a great time and a great way and a simple way to bond with your child. They're having that time with you. You're giving your time to them and some of yourself to them in a way. And it's just another way to give your child love. So I think that's definitely very important. That is all I really have to say at this time about read alouds. I hope that this has encouraged you to become a read aloud parent, or to continue reading aloud if you're feeling like this is pointless or you want to give up or something, or maybe gives you some ideas and tips on what to read and how to read and when to read. But I really, really hope that you become a read aloud parent yourself. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more. Bye.